Hey guys, it's Luke here, and I'm here to talk to you today about Freya Loadout and basically everything about Freya and why I go the Battlerites that I go and what Battlerites you could choose, whether or not you think it's optimal compared to what I go. Well, let's go over all of them, alright? Static hammers. Hitting an enemy with static using bash increases the duration of static by 1 second up to a maximum duration of 6 seconds. It can be good. I can't necessarily say it's bad, but it definitely is not a right that fits into my kit, fits into my build, or that I would necessarily run. But I'm sure you could find a build for it to make it work. Tempest it's a really good right. Um, I wouldn't necessarily run it. Like it pairs well with twin hammers, but I wouldn't necessarily run it without twin hammers. So if you're running twin hammers, then you're going to want this basically every time. I see a lot of lower level Freyas that will take twin hammers but not take Tempest simply because they don't necessarily realize how important this 35% move speed for 2 seconds is. It is very instrumental to Freya's, play style, especially when you have the twin hammers build and you're playing aggressive into the enemy's backline, especially in 3v3 tournament play. Thunderbolt. Storm Mace deals 6 bonus damage to enemies affected by static, and the incapacitate duration is increased by 0.5 seconds. You could definitely run this, and it's a very good Battlerite. I would totally run it if I could. However, it just doesn't. It's not better than Twin Hammers or Tempest. And if you're gonna run Twin Hammers, this is definitely optimal over Thunderbolt. However, you can definitely make this work. You can get quite a lot of value out of that 6 damage whenever you're hitting somebody that has static on them. And the incap duration is it's okay. It allows your teammates more time to play off of your incap, or say you have an Esmo on your team, it allows them more time to charge his M2 or get a charged M2 or a Jade Snipe. But it's just, it doesn't really outweigh this by any means. Twin Hammers. Storm Mace gains 1 ability charge, but cooldowns increased by 0.5 seconds. It's absolutely amazing, right? The pressure it allows you to place on a ranged hero is it's basically her kit. I mean, it's not necessary by any means. You can definitely play Freya without twin hammers, except you just don't have the kind of pressure into the ranged backline that you would if you did run it, and that's why I run it almost 100% of the time. In this patch, I do run it 100% of the time. Electric conduction. While the spring effect is active, your next bash grants you a shield absorbing 14 damage lasting up to 3 seconds. It's really good, right, if say you're I mean, you're always spacing for value. It's one of those rights that you're always getting value out of. So in that sense, it is really good. I just can't say that it's optimal in necessarily any case. I have seen some higher level, quotation mark higher level Freyas run it, but I don't know. I just don't necessarily think it's optimal by any means. Lightning speed. Melee attack speed increases by 30% for the next 3 swings after using spring. This rate's actually really good. I mean, say you're playing against an Esmo that has, he has no space, he has no Q, he has nothing. He doesn't have a counter, he doesn't have anything. If you space onto him, you can completely obliterate. It's really good for punishing enemies that have no cooldowns or their cooldowns are on their cycle. But I don't know. I have run it before, but it doesn't really fit into my 3v3 build that I run in tournaments and stuff. Thundering Spring. Spring range increases by 25% and haste duration increases by 0.5 seconds. It's actually matchup specific. I will pull this right out occasionally against a Taya or Jumong. You can use this right. It makes it easier to stick on them. Basically, I'll take this right and then I'll just spam EX space against a Taya or against a Jumong, and it makes it for a much easier time to stick to the target essentially. Hammer time. Triggering electric shield reduces the remaining cooldown of Thunderclap by 2.5 seconds. Well, this right used to be essential. When when the Battlerites first changed over, like it used to make it so it completely reset the cooldown of Thunderclap, but now that it only resets it by 2.5 seconds, it's not a good right. I don't think there's really any situation to take this right anymore, because 2.5 seconds is just not enough in the grand scheme of your cycles and your cooldowns. Next, Overcharge. Triggering Electric Shield inflicts static on nearby enemies and applies a 16 health shield on nearby allies. Okay, so this right is, since the beginning of the game, been, a benchmark right that you take on Freya, especially in 3v3, because what this right does is, say you're playing in 3v3 and say a Raigon hits your counter. The Jumong didn't hit your counter, but it'll apply static to the Jumong. So basically, Raigon making a mistake allows me to punish the Jumong very hard. So, like, you don't need all 3 enemies to hit your counter. You only need one of them to hit your counter. And then, not only does it allow you to apply pressure to any of them, it's the whole mind games, because it allows you to swap targets, essentially. Like, you can just, like, so easily swap from the Raigon, and say now you have static on the older, so now you can dump to the older. It makes it for a much easier time, and it gives you a lot more options, because you can just punish the person that's most vulnerable at that given time. And it's hard to say if it's optimal in 2v2. I usually only run it in 2v2 if I'm running a double melee comp, solo queue or whatever it is. But it's a absolutely essential right in 3s. I don't think there's any way you don't take it, because not only does it give you the static on all nearby enemies for hitting your counter, it gives you a 16 health shield on all nearby allies, which is M1.5 for a lot of characters. Lightning Rod. Each target hit by Thunderclap grants a 15 health shield. This right is really good just because it ties in with Freya's whole kit, essentially. Like, excuse me. You can be, it allows you to stay in the back line for, like, so much longer than you would be otherwise. Because say you're in the back line, you get your shield from your R, you get your shield from your Q, assuming they hit your counter, and then you get your, like, say you hit 2 enemies with Thunderclap shield, that's a 15 health shield, which is literally insane. It buys you like an extra 2 seconds in their backline, which allows you to get your space back up or get your counter back up. It allows you to extend your defensive rotation or offensive rotation in some situations. Rolling Thunder, moving forward during Thunderclap, basically makes it so you can move during your E moves forward. And this right is Vexation, for instance, takes it, and it's a really good right. Like, you can definitely see the value out of it in a lot of what am I gonna say? In a lot of matchups, for instance, like against Taya, it's good because because Taya is so fast with the haste that she can sometimes outrun your E if you're on top of her. But this makes it so she can't do that. So overall, it's a good right, and I can definitely understand why somebody prefers it over either Torrent or Lightning Rod. However, I preferably don't prefer it. Torrent. Thunderclap deals 5 bonus damage and pulls enemies toward you. This right is instrumental for my build. A lot of other top Freyas, and I don't know if any Freyas at all, run this Torrent right. However, I think it's completely essential because not only does it deal 5 bonus damage to everyone you hit, so say you hit 2 people, it's 5 bonus damage on each of them, it's the Displace that screws them up. The Displace just completely... It ties into Freya's whole crit. Again, what I'm saying is, it like completely displaces them, and it screws up whatever ability they're doing, and it basically makes Freya even more annoying than she already is. Like, you're sitting in their backline, moving them around, and incapping them into walls, knocking them, pulling them into you. It's a really good right overall. Surge. Reduces charge strike cooldown by 3 seconds and hitting at least one target, grants 25% energy. This right is absolutely amazing. I love it. I run it in 2s all the time, especially if I'm against like a Blossom or a Pest where my R can also hit a Queen or a tree, and you'll get another shield based off of that. And so basically this right will not only reduce your cooldown by 3 seconds, but if you hit somebody with it, which is like all the time, assuming you're using it at a proper time, you'll get your energy back. So you're basically using it for free. So you're using your R while still charging for your ult. it's completely very, very overall good, right? However, in this current meta, I just don't have a place for it in my 3v3 build. I really wish I did, though. Lightning Strike applies a 1-second stun. Thunderstruck is an interesting right. Like, back in the old Battlerite system, before free-to-play, this right would be really good in, like, late game, you know, round 5 or round 9, if it's round 5, whatever, in tournaments. Because that 1-second stun allows for so much follow-up, because I can get an instant in-cap off of that, and then my team can follow up, and you can basically AD to 0 somebody with that right. It's just, in so many situations, and even in solo queue games a lot of the time, you don't necessarily ult. Like, Freya's ult isn't by any means essential. Like, you can spam your EXE, which is completely bonkers with this 5 bonus damage, and your EX space, which gives the snare and bonus range and damage. Positive charge, your damage output increases by 10% when electric shield is active. This right used to be 15%, like last patch, but it's just, right now, I don't see any point in taking it. It's, the value you get out of this is very minimal. Like, say you have, not only does it only work when they hit your counter or your whatever, it's just, it's not good. Like, 10% is not, like, very much. Like, say somebody hits your counter, you're only doing, like, 1 or 2 bonus damage to them. Like, it's not by any means a right that you'll get 200 damage worth of value out of, like some of these other rights. Like this one, for instance. Or shield-wise from this one, or shield-wise from this one, or the energy you'll get from this one. So now let's go into my build. We'll start with the essentials first. I'd say that the essential, assuming we're playing for 3v3, and it can work for 2v2 as well, but we'll start with 3v3, is Overcharge. You just really need Overcharge. I don't see any situation to not take Overcharge in 3v3. In 2v2, I can understand replacing Overcharge for Surge in certain matchups, like I said, against Blossom, against Pest, and against maybe like a matchup, maybe double melee, or if you know, like, if you're against double melee, so you'll know you'll be getting a lot of value out of Surge, but otherwise Overcharge is just the way to go. Next, we'll go with Lightning Rod. This right is just, the reason it's so important is that it's for what Freya's kit is. It's staying in the backline and stacking these huge shields with, you know, whether it's from this or whatever, from your E and your counter. Like, it's literally, like, such a strong shield, especially if you hit like 3 of them, you're literally getting a 45 damage shield. Next, I'm gonna go with Torrent. Torrent, like I said before, it's really good, just because not only does it tie with this, it just makes your E so powerful, and the displaces. If you haven't tried Freya and you haven't used this right, just go out and try it out, maybe in a playground or something. But the displace on this is really good, and it makes it easy, you know, especially if they're like kind of on the edge of your E, it pulls them into you essentially, so they're in M1 range, and you can play around that. But I have no problem with someone going Rolling Thunder over this. I mean, it's just preference at that point, whether you want the movement on your E or you want the bonus damage and displace. Next, we'll go with Twin Hammers. The bonus M2 just makes it so much easier, especially in like 3v3, to zone a ranged character, like, because that's the whole point. You want to zone the ranged. Sometimes you want to zone the melee from your backline. It's just, and then in 2v2 you can just spam in-cap people, and then your teammate and yourself can play around that. And then we'll go do Tempest, and I don't see any reason ever you should run Twin Hammers without running Tempest, just because, like, people, I don't know, I think it's just some newer players don't necessarily realize, not only, like, 35% move speed for 2 seconds every time you hit an M2 it's really crazy. Like, it's overpowered in my opinion. It's a very, very strong right. And I see no situation where you should take Thunderbolt over Tempest. I don't even think it's preference based. I think it's just you need Tempest if you're gonna run Twin Hammers. Now, another build some people like to run is this build with Electric Induction plus Lightning Speed. This build is good because you get another shield from here to stack with this shield, and obviously your counter shield, and then your R shield as well. And then this space right here, like I said, it's really good for punishing, say, an Esmo, or, you know, say a Sirius jumped in and used his counter. He has nothing. So you space on him and just wail on him and do, like, half his HP before he can get his cooldown and get his cooldowns back and reset. And then you can also replace Thundering Spring with this. You can replace the, what do you call it? Lightning Speed with Thundering Spring. And this, like I said, is just good for sticking to a Jumong or sticking to a Taya. Say it's somebody like a Verse that constantly running away from you and you can't get to him, can't stick on him for your life. This right's good because you use this and then you use your EX space and you're literally on top of them 24/7. So that's really strong, right? And then we'll put these back, and then this is the build I go in a lot of 2v2 situations, you know, 2v2 solo queue games. Just because the value you get out of Surge, it's really, people don't necessarily realize this either, for that matter, is the 25% energy you get is really crazy. Because you can just spam this on cooldown essentially, like every time it's up, you just hit it on the, you know, the nearest target that doesn't have any defensive things, whether it's a space or a counter. You just gotta want to be cautious of it. You don't want to necessarily miss it because it's pretty big to miss because you lose 25% energy every time you miss your Surge. But I mean, even with Overcharge, you can still spam use Surge, but it just depends on the game and the situation, really. The whole thing with Freya is you always want to disrupt the backline. Is hitting your counter is obviously essential, but the more you play Freya, the easier it is. She's not necessarily a hard champion. She might be hard to master, but anybody can do it. That's going to be it for my Freya guide. I hope you enjoyed.